Okay, well, hello and a very warm welcome to another webinar session from BSHAA. My name is Raul Garcia Medina, and I'm a BSHAA Council member and the Clinical Director of Urology, an ear care company based in London Bridge. The webinar is titled Online Reviews, Testimonials, and Reputational Management, what hearing practices need to know. And your presenters today are Chris Erickson and Dr. Abram Bailey, both accomplished individuals in our field. Chris has been in the hearing aid industry for over 15 years as a licensed hearing instrument dispenser, marketing director, and business development specialist. And Dr. Bailey is the founder and CEO of Hearing Tracker, and he's a leading expert on consumer technology for hearing loss, and a staunch advocate for patient-centered hearing care and audiological best practices. Just to let you know, the talk will be approximately 40 to 50 minutes, and there will be a switch between the presenters whilst we're doing the broadcasting. There is a box in the bottom right-hand corner where you can actually post your questions. I'll be keeping an eye on those, and hopefully towards the end of the webinar, there will be a chance for me to pose those questions to the panel. And without further ado, I'm going to hand on the microphone to Dr. Bailey. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. So I will go ahead and start sharing my screen here and get the PowerPoint going. And I guess let me know, Raul, if you're able to see that and if you're still able to see me. I know when I spoke with Jay before, he said he'd like to see my face while I'm giving the talk, so people don't get too bored.
No, that's a good idea.
So let me share my screen. And I'll just put this into the presenter mode here. Okay.
That's great. View on. That's perfect.
Looking good? All right.
Absolutely.
So we've already got the introduction to Chris and I, yeah, so Chris was a co-founder of Odd SEO, and Odd SEO is a sort of web development agency and SEO agency that is focused on the hearing care field. So he's helped, I don't know, hundreds of audiologists with their websites and building their online reputation. And more recently, he founded Review Revo, which is a website that he will be talking about later in the presentation, and that is it's a review builder service, so it helps practices to generate customer reviews from a number of different websites like Hearing Tracker, but also like more familiar ones like Yelp and Google Plus and that sort of thing. And Chris is also working with Hearing Tracker. He does a lot of SEO and marketing work for us, and me, I'm the founder and CEO of Hearing Tracker. We primarily just run a website, hearingtracker.com, and that's sort of been online since early 2014. So I just kind of went over all of this, so I won't get into that again. So the agenda, what we're going to be talking about today: why digital matters, the power of social proof, and we'll define that for you, the top sites for reviews, online reviews in hearing healthcare, how to get more reviews and testimonials, and Q&A. My part of the talk is going to be a little bit shorter than Chris's, but if you guys came here to ask me a question, maybe some of you did, feel free to put those into the box so we can get to them at the end. Okay, so why digital matters. I went through and kind of reformatted this presentation for the UK audience, and I hope that you guys appreciate this. So we've got 9 out of every 10 adults in the UK have recently used the internet, and by recent, I think the measure from the Office for National Statistics is sometime in the last 3 months. So you can see that's broken up by age group there. And I'm not sure what your sort of target demographic is, but if it's anything like the US, it's probably somewhere in that 65 plus area. So, basically the majority of that group are online, 78% in the 65 to 74, and for the 75 plus, 41%. And this was an interesting one that I found, which shows the growth of internet usage from 2011 to 2017 in the UK, broken down by age group. So obviously there's more people on the internet across the board, but you can see a significant number of people who have joined and become regular internet users in the 65 plus sort of bracket. So this was just one more way to slice the information, but they looked at retirees, 2011 to 2017. So there's a whole lot more retired people who are going online. I couldn't find a similar statistic for the UK. I did have a look on Google Scholar, but I wasn't able to pull up anything immediately. So I kept this slide in from the US based studies. Public awareness, perception, and use of online physician rating websites. This was from 2014. 40% said physician rating sites were somewhat important when choosing a physician. 19% said physician rating sites were very important when choosing a physician. I'm assuming even in the last couple of years, this is probably, these numbers would probably be up from where they were. But just looking at that, you can see that, there are a lot of people out there that are putting weight on this. And even if you're just talking about that 20% that call it very important, that's a whole big group of people who could potentially patronize your practice. So it might be a small number relative to 100%, but it's not, it's not nothing. It could be a good source of leads for you. And I'm sure Chris can tell you that, when he's done web work for people and really turned their digital presence around, they do find a new source of traffic. So then I have this one, which is that a majority of older internet, this chart here, a majority of older internet users go online daily. Now, I don't know what this is in the UK. I didn't find a study that looked at daily, just the last 3 months. But here in the US, 71% of people in the 65 plus group are online almost every day. So, there's tremendous potential to reach out to this age group online, at least here in the US and probably over there as well. So our website, hearingtracker.com, what can our site tell you about the demographics in the hearing loss space? So obviously we've looked at some general statistics of internet usage, but with Hearing Tracker, we have the capability of looking kind of a little bit deeper because we see, we see the demographics of usage for our website specifically, which is obviously targeting consumers of hearing aids. So I'll get through that, but basically, for those, again, that don't know what we have a global hearing professional directory. We are, as I'll show you in a minute, primarily drawing traffic from the US, but we also do have quite a lot of people in the UK visiting our website. We recently listed all of Amplifon's practices in the UK, and we've got a few other practices that are listed over there. But basically, as more practices have signed up, we've started seeing our traffic picking up over there as well. We've got a searchable hearing aid database, so we've got hundreds of hearing aids that consumers are able to look through. They can find hearing aids that have telecoils or that are iPhone compatible just by clicking on a filter. And then there's hundreds, if not thousands, of consumer reviews for hearing aids. And we actually have a review system which is more than a general kind of 1 to 5 stars. We ask people about their benefit and background noise and benefit on the telephone, how much feedback they experience, that sort of stuff. So I'd encourage you guys to have a closer look at that if you haven't yet. And we obviously have those consumer reviews for hearing aids, but we also have those for hearing professionals and for hearing clinics. So there's a 3-part review that consumers can go through where they would review their hearing aids, their professional, and the clinic. And one of the things that we do is, say you change businesses and get hired somewhere else, you actually take those hearing aid or those provider reviews with you, as opposed to those staying with the business. The business reviews stay with the business, the provider reviews stay with you. So that's kind of a neat thing. And we've also got a hearing technology blog, and actually since I created this slide, we've also got an expert answers area where consumers can come and ask questions, and our provider database provides answers to those questions. And that's a really cool area. I think it's just called Ask on our menu if you're looking around. Now these numbers are slightly underwhelming for the UK. These are, our real visitor statistics. Last month we had 3,000 visitors from the UK, which only represents 5% of our visitors in total. Most of them, again, are in the US, but we did double our traffic in the UK year on year. So we have been tracking this for a while, and we expect that number to double every year. So while it might not seem like a lot of people, it's never too early to establish your presence on the website, especially if you want to kind of have, a really good presence once this traffic is built out. And there's leads there. I mean, there's new patient leads to be found today. So this is our overall visitor statistics. I threw this in there because I think it's interesting to see how people are accessing the website. And this is probably going to be, reflective of an overall trend that's happening with internet usage. But, desktop access has gone up 89%, but mobile traffic since last year has gone up 158%, and tablet has gone up 137%. And I'm sure Chris could tell you that, that mobile is kind of the new, it's kind of the new discovery platform. Most consumers are finding their doctors and finding new products on their phones these days. So it makes sense that this is the change that we're experiencing as well with our website. Okay, so this is our UK demographics. So I pulled this up out of our kind of analytics thing that we have. It just shows really that, the people that are visiting our website, just a kind of a snapshot, they are, in a higher, I guess, SES, more male than female, and also an older demographic than the average website, and higher educated than users of a standard website or an average website. How do people find Hearing Tracker online? Usually, the vast majority of people are Googling for things like you see on the left. So, best hearing aids, hearing aid brands, specifically looking for information about a type of hearing aid. We get a lot of, like that bottom one there, Oticon Open reviews. Pretty much any model of hearing aid that you type in with the word reviews, our website's going to come up. And then on the right there, you can see, and this is a slide that was more US specific, but when people are looking for hearing aids in a specific area, like hearing aids in Lincoln or hearing aids in Bloomington, that's another way that people can discover our website. And those kinds of search terms are going to bring people to the provider area of our website, while the stuff on the left is usually going to bring them to the hearing aid pages. Okay, this is actually where I'm going to stop my part of the presentation and pass over to Chris. So I'm just going to get out of this and pass the presenter.
Great, thank you.
Hang on. There we go. I think you're the presenter now, Chris. Yeah.
All right. Can everyone see me, hear me, and see the screen?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks, Abram, for kicking us off and talking to us about Hearing Tracker. And thank you, BSHAA members, for attending today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn about this. But the first thing we're going to start with here is social proof. So let's get into it here. Social proof, what is it? Basically, we look to people like us, and we look at their experiences as a proxy for what we might experience with a product or service. So social proof is incredibly powerful. It's the theory that people are influenced by what other people like them will say, or their past experiences. I have a Wikipedia definition up there for you if anyone wants to read that. That's basically what social proof is, and social proof can take different forms. It can be an online review at a third party, Yelp or Yelp. It could be a testimonial on your website. That's considered social proof. So there are a few different forms of social proof. So again, a few different types: online reviews, testimonials, comments on social media, people sharing information with their friends. That's all social proof, and it can be incredibly powerful. So online reviews. Online reviews are becoming incredibly important these days. There was a study done recently where 92% of consumers now read online reviews before purchasing a product or visiting a business, which, even though a lot of these review sites have been around a while, it's a significant increase over the last half decade or so. Part of the reason for that is the proliferation of these review type websites. You've got Yelp, Amazon, Angie's List, Trustpilot, stuff like that really encourage people to document their experience and share it with their friends and create a community around how they feel about certain products, their doctors, their restaurants, all this other sort of thing. So because these websites have become popular, it's sort of changed the consumer and the consumer mindset, and how they react to having either a positive, negative, or indifferent experience. Interesting thing is how much consumer, online reviews particularly are trusted. 88% of people surveyed said they trusted an online review as much as a personal recommendation from a friend or someone they knew. And almost 3/4 of people said they wouldn't take action until they read reviews online. So it's, that's an important takeaway. It means a lot to people, and you need to make sure that wherever somebody is looking up information about you, whether it's Hearing Tracker or Yelp or your website or a landing page or social media, that there are reviews and testimonials that people can look to, because that's what they're looking for. I talk to business owners, excuse me, I talk to business owners, every day, and practice owners. And some of them, they are nervous about getting into online reviews. They worry about online reviews being mostly negative, which is not true, mostly positive. Over 80% of Yelp reviews are 3 stars or higher. And there's this fear of having people, make negative comments about your business. Of course, we all would share that fear. But we have to realize that consumers don't expect you to run a perfect business or a perfect practice. In fact, it makes it more believable. It makes you more human that you're not perfect. So there have actually been some internal studies done at Yelp where they found that 4-star reviewed businesses got clicked on more than 5-star review businesses. That's really interesting. You think the more stars, the more clicks, right? Well, the theory behind why that is that possibly people don't always believe the perfect ratings. They think that they're somehow, fudged, or there's been some sort of effort to adjust those. Also, there's people that I talk to that have legal and ethical concerns about online reviews. Here in the States, with Yelp, Yelp is a huge online review site here in the US and across the world. And a lot of people have accused it of, withholding negative reviews if you advertise, or if you don't advertise, they'll show your negative reviews. People have even taken them to court over it, but they've lost all those lawsuits. And Yelp does not do that. So there's a lot of misconceptions about these companies and how they operate their review platforms. But mostly what I'll say is online reviews are going to happen, about your practice, and testimonials, negative feedback, all that's going to be, those conversations are going to be taking place online. So you might as well be involved. You might as well be proactive with trying to encourage people to review you online, because at least then you have some control. At least then you can move the needle a little bit. And if for no other reason than your SEO or your search engine optimization, there's a company called Moz, which runs some software in the SEO space, and they'll poll every year SEO professionals across the globe and ask them for, their belief on what signals are part of the Google algorithm. Now, remember, Google doesn't publish its algorithm, so we're all sort of left to guess. But the professionals basically came to the conclusion that it was almost 10%. How many reviews you have, the diversity of the keywords within the reviews, diversity in terms of all the sites that they're on. So, basically, and this was 2 years ago, some people suggest that it's actually more now, but it was almost 1/10 of your SEO score, if you will, was your review profile. So it's very important for your SEO and how you show up in search engines. And just to illustrate that a little bit, I want to talk about a little test that a friend of mine did in the SEO industry. He has a favorite bar in this town in upstate New York called Olean, and the bar didn't even have a website. Just to make sure, a dive bar in the States, we kind of consider that a bar that's not very nice. Maybe doesn't have the most aesthetic appeal, but people like to go hang out. Everyone's really comfortable. So that's what we call a dive bar. So a buddy of mine had a bunch of his friends go to their Yelp page, go visit the business, and then leave a review, but make sure that they mentioned the word dive bar in that review. And then a few weeks later, when you went to Google dive bar in Olean, New York, you see that Google created on the right here what we call a one box. This means that Google associates that business with that keyword phrase very strongly. Google doesn't usually give one boxes for a generic keyword query, but it's interesting, and the take home is that Google is looking to Yelp to learn about your business, because the only information that Google had that would indicate that this bar was a dive bar were the reviews that were given on Yelp. So it's a good take home that Google is reading your site, but Google is also reading your profile on other sites to learn about your business, who you are, how much people like you, what sort of keywords your practice is associated with, and that sort of thing. So just to talk about some of the review sites out there, Yelp is a big one, has over 100 million reviews, desktop and mobile. A lot of people think that it's just restaurants that get reviewed on Yelp. I've talked to some business owners who said, I thought just people only reviewed restaurants on Yelp. And actually, that's less than 1/5 of the businesses reviewed on Yelp. So a lot of people are reviewing their healthcare professionals and their doctors and this sort of thing. And another question I get a lot is, well, yeah, but isn't that just for younger people? And yes, I mean, definitely there's something to be said for the fact that younger folks are probably more active on these review sites. However, almost 1/4 of the users on Yelp in Great Britain are over the age of 55, and potentially, in our demographic there. So that's interesting to note. And the breakdown as far as stars, again, this goes against people saying, oh, geez, I don't know if I want to get involved with online reviews, all this negative feedback. Most of the time, if someone's going to go through the hassle of leaving you a review, logging into Yelp, it's because they're trying to do you a favor. It's because they really like you most of the time. Sometimes it's because they had a really bad experience. But as you can see, over 2/3 of the people gave a 4 or 5-star review. Now, there's another interesting thing in that some reviews, particularly on Yelp, will get filtered. So this isn't just a Yelp thing. This is also a Google thing and a lot of other review sites. have their own algorithm to try and determine when someone is faking a review. Now, these algorithms are not perfect. I mean, they are driven by an algorithm, artificial intelligence that tries to learn, some of these behavioral patterns, but they're not perfect. That being said, over 3/4 of Yelp reviews end up sticking in the main category, and about 1/4 of them are buried in the filtered section where people generally don't see them and they don't count towards your score. We'll talk a little bit why that is later. So for Yelp, one thing that's interesting is, so again, about 1/4 of them get filtered. And here are some of the ways that they can get filtered. By reviews having the same IP address. So you never want to initiate any sort of program where people are going to review you online on a third-party website, and yet you're getting all those reviews in the office, or you have a computer where everyone fills out those reviews. Because all those reviews are coming from the same IP address, and people can tell. In Hearing Tracker, we have wiped reviews when we see them coming from the same IP address. So that's something to keep in mind. If all the reviews are coming from the same computer or building, then these sites are smart enough to know that these aren't legitimate. The frequency of reviews. If you've never had a review on Yelp or say Yell.com or Google review, and then all of a sudden you get 8 reviews in one day. This actually happened to a client of ours recently, and because they tried an initiative where they asked everybody to leave a review, and they got filtered because they asked everybody all at once. And about 8 or 9 people went and did it, and all of them got filtered because there was something suspicious about the fact that they didn't have a stream of reviews, and then all of a sudden one day they all came in. Also, if people are on these platforms, particularly like Yelp, and they don't have any friends, they haven't uploaded a picture, they've never left another review, and then they go and give you a 5-star review, that's often going to be hidden because, again, the algorithms have determined that there's a high likelihood that that might be not a legitimate review. Also, Yelp or any of these review sites help with what we call your barnacle SEO. So again, SEO is search engine optimization. Basically, it's how you show up in search rankings, particularly in Google, Yahoo, or Bing. And a lot of you may have noticed as you Google certain terms that you'll see different directories come up. You might see Hearing Tracker. You might see Hearing Aid No. You might see Healthy Hearing. You might see Yelp, Yellow Pages. These are all directories, right? Or Yell.com. And so Barnacle SEO is the strategy of, look, those people are going to take up space in the search engine rankings. So instead of trying to beat them, which you still want to try and do, what you want to try and do is rank as high as you can within those platforms, so that if someone clicks on that 10 best hearing providers in Los Angeles, California, that you're more likely to show up and eventually get the click because you rank well on that page. And how do you rank well on that page? Well, you have activity on your profile. You have people checking in, leaving reviews, all this sort of stuff. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, well, here's just a couple of examples of a few review sites. Again, Facebook is social media, but it's also a review site. Google Plus or Google My Business, Google Maps, Hearing Tracker, Yelp, Yell, Trustpilot. Some of these are more popular in the States than they are in the UK, but there are a lot of different options there. So another site that's important for online reviews, as Abram talked about, so I'll just kind of briefly cover this. But this is interesting. Hearing Tracker is interesting because Hearing Tracker is specific to the hearing industry. So Google sees it as a very authoritative website because some of these other sites are all about reviews. Well, Hearing Tracker is all about reviews, just for hearing aids and hearing practices. So it's a very relevant website. So testimonials. Let's talk a little bit about testimonials. Look, testimonials create trust. What I love about them is they tell stories. If you ever work with anybody in branding, you know, they try and get you to tell your brand story or the story of your business. They also help increase conversion on websites. There have been a lot of studies, people with various percentage increases based on traffic from websites when they have testimonials. But 34% in general increase in conversion on a website is one of the studies that I found, just having testimonials and that social proof. And then customer feedback. You know, customer feedback is so important when you're running a business today. A lot of us like to assume that our customers are all happy, or we know which ones are happy or indifferent or unhappy. But there's been, you know, there's been some interesting research in this field. One was done by Bain & Co. This was in the 90s actually, that found that just by asking a customer if they're happy increases their satisfaction. So just by, you know, going through some measure that shows that you care, you know, makes them happier about the process with you. Also, it helps identify issues within your organization. You know, we've had practices that have received, you know, some negative feedback from these feedback loops and have been able to make changes to their business so that they could improve their business and ultimately their customer satisfaction. So recommendations. Let's talk about some recommendations on what you can do to improve your review profile, your testimonials, your social proof, and all that. First off, I would claim all your profiles. So whether it's Yelp, Yell, you know, all the different profiles that you can claim. There's Google. Make sure you've claimed that profile, because until these are claimed and verified, they're less likely to rank well within those platforms. You also want to complete the profiles. Don't just upload one image. Try to upload a few images. You know, maybe a picture of your office, a picture of the product that you usually sell. A picture of some humans is great. So if you have a bio picture or a picture of the staff, that would be fantastic. But there's been a lot of research that you can see on the screen here that consumers click on and they stay on listings that have photos and videos and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that you complete these profiles. It's incredibly important because traffic is going to these sites. You got traffic going to Yell, you have traffic going to Yelp, you have traffic going to Angie's List. They're looking for somebody in your field, and so it's incredibly important that you make sure you have all this, you know, set up. There's some offline stuff that you can do, you know, to increase your social proof. You can talk to your clients and you know, let them know that online reviews are really important to you. There are a couple things you don't want to do though. So I included a URL. I'm sorry, I don't think that's a hyperlink, but you could probably Google it and get there, or you can write that down. But you need to be very careful about soliciting for reviews. At least here in the States, a lot of businesses have gotten in trouble legally by offering gifts, rewards, payment for people to leave reviews. It violates, you know, here in the States, both federal and many state laws. It also violates the terms of service for a lot of these. So for example, if Yelp finds out that you are offering you know, some sort of gift in exchange for a review, they could shut down your profile, and that would obviously be negative. You know, having the logos and URLs of these review sites on your business cards is very important. You know, as people look at your business card and they see that they can go there to look at what other people say about you, it sort of jogs their memory to go there when they want to leave a review. So that's important. You can have information in the waiting room, little brochures, placards that say, hey, find us on Yelp, find us on Yell, and this is where you can do it. I also recommend, and this is kind of an old school technique, but I do recommend having the testimonial book in the waiting room. Look, while someone's sitting there, they don't have an opportunity to be on your website or your Yelp, although they might be on Yelp on their mobile. But if not, at least give them a chance to see what other people are saying about you. So keep up the sort of old school or offline methods of having that social proof. A few things I recommend for getting more reviews. For Yelp, you can create a check-in offer to basically you're offering people some sort of gift for them to check in, not for a review, for them to check in on Yelp. So a lot of times people in the States will offer a free package of batteries, maybe a 4-pack of batteries as a check-in offer, so that when people get to their office, they check in on Yelp. This does a couple of things. First, it drives more activity on your Yelp profile, which, remember, if we want to rank higher, that Barnacle SEO within these platforms, we need more activity. But also, when someone checks in on Yelp, the next time they go to Yelp, it reminds them to review your business. So more check-ins in an indirect way is actually going to lead to more reviews. Also, I recommend displaying review information on your site. Gives you that great social proof. Also just kind of jogs people's memory that, hey, I can go leave a review over here. I really like this practice. And then getting a reputation management or review builder solution for your practice to sort of automate the system is another recommendation that you can do. Because basically getting reviews is hard, at least in the States. Older folks, the demographic that we work with, let's say 55 and plus in general, they're not as active on these review sites as the younger folks. And because of that, we have to work a little bit harder to generate these reviews. If many of you, at least in the States, if you opened up a coffee shop, you would have no trouble getting 100 reviews in the first couple of weeks, because the type of clientele that would be using your business, they're on Yelp and Google and Facebook all day long. So they're just sort of used to that. In this industry, we have to work a little bit harder. So I want to talk a little bit about how many people you have to sort of communicate with to often, to get these sort of reviews. And this was a study based on someone who runs some of this sophisticated review builder software. And they sent out emails to see how many people it would take to get to leave a review. I sent out 100 emails. First of all, the open rate was around 50%. And of those 50, only 13 people were willing to leave a review. 9 people actually went to leave a review. This is on average over hundreds of people, thousands of people. And 4 people actually completed a review, which is called review friction. So they went to the site, they didn't have a login, they couldn't remember their password, they gave up halfway through, something like that. So you have to, the point of this slide is to show you that you really have to be talking and communicating with a lot of people to get these reviews and testimonials. And so one thing you can do is help them out. We have practices that I've worked with in the past where we created a PDF that they could print out and have in their office that showed them exactly what to do to review the practice. So that way it just made it a little bit easier for that person. On this particular sheet, this is all about Google. And it tells the person where to go to the maps, and then search this, click here, write a review. And, of course, they have to sign in, but still was incredibly helpful and helped this practice and many others who have used this sort of technique to get a lot of reviews. So any help you can provide them, it's not going to make it foolproof. It's not going to get everyone to review you, but it certainly helps. And I'll have my contact information near the end, and if anybody wants help creating something like this, or you don't know where to start, you can reach out to me and email me, and I'll certainly help you out with that. And then, there's always the question of how do you respond to reviews. You always want to respond to reviews, actually. So the positive ones, you want to respond, you want to take the time to thank them. Someone went through the time to leave you a review, tell all their friends what they thought. The least you could do is thank them for doing that. The negative response, the negative responses are really important. It shows that you care, but you do have to keep it professional. It's not a place to really sort of debate, facts. It's really a place to say, look, we care, we're sorry, we'll reach out to you. The other people reading these reviews do not expect perfection. And I cited earlier that study of Yelp where 4-star businesses actually got clicked on more than 5-star businesses. And again, that's just because it's more believable. We live in a society today where, on Instagram's everything's perfect, or Yelp everything's perfect, but we know it's not, right? So people tend to believe a little bit of imperfection, and that's okay. 4.5 stars is actually the sweet spot. Testimonials, a couple of recommendations on testimonials. If you have offline testimonials, see if you can get permission to put them online on your website. So if you have a testimonial book where 20 people have left a message, reach out to those folks and see if you can't get their permission to put that online. Of course, you'll need that their permission, and I never use full names, but I would still get their permission anyways. And then encourage more testimonials, through conversations, mentions throughout the practice. I listed some of those other ways before: brochures, placards, just having those conversations. So there's, there are programs out there, a lot of programs out there like this that are review builders. Not every practice has to have a review builder, but it certainly helps automate the process and helps practices to really improve their review profiles across a number of sites. So Review Revo is one, and that one is either email or text-based. It surveys your clients or your patients and asks them how they feel about you, and based on whether it's positive or negative, will lead them down a couple of different paths. Positive responses are encouraged to leave a review, and negative responses get a different response where we're sort of more trying to make sure that they're taken care of. So it encourages positive reviews at third-party sites, gives you negative feedback you need to help improve your customer service, and actually discourages the negative third-party reviews. And so how that works is, let's say we're using email. This is a gentleman who uses Review Revo, and you'd send an email that says, hey, thanks for visiting us. We value you, and we'd like to get your feedback. Then they'd score that person. If they left a testimonial, this would be on their website. So when people go to the website, they see, wow, they're 4.9 out of 5 stars, and here's all these things these real people said. So it's very important for that. Also allows people on the widget to leave a review right from there, from the website, go right to their Facebook, Google Maps, their hearing tracker. We can integrate with Yell, and we've integrated with around 200 sites across the world. So there are a lot of different sites that we can use for this. And one of the things that makes Review Revo different is that it gives you those rich snippets. That it's marked up with what we call schema, which is basically information on the back end that helps Google read the information on your website. And so if you've ever searched for hearing aids in a particular area, you'll see some of these search results have stars or other information there. It's called a rich snippet, and these review builders help you get that. So you get the rich snippets, you get the testimonials on the website, you get the third-party reviews. It has this nice synergistic relationship between reviews, SEO, social proof, conversion improvement, all that sort of stuff. Here are a few references that I have for some of the information that I looked up. A lot of it came from Bright Local, which is a UK firm, and a couple other things. So next, I think we'll open it up for a few questions.
Great, Chris. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. I certainly learned a lot myself. Look, I have a question from Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And the question started by just clarifying, just asking to clarify what is meant by claiming a profile. So I think you mentioned claim your profile online, make sure that you post your photographs and you talk about what you do and what you offer and so on and so forth. So can you clarify exactly how you do that, how you claim your profile and what that really means?
Yeah, and so if you have any questions on this, you're welcome to reach out to me. If my question doesn't answer your question, or my answer doesn't answer your question. But the challenge with that is it's different with every platform. So a lot of these review platforms and directories actually will have your business listed before you add it. How they do that is they scrape other databases and other bits of information to find businesses in a particular area. So you might have a profile on Yelp or Yell.com and you've never added it. And that's the case with a lot of different businesses. So every business has, every platform, I should say, has a slightly different method of verification. With Yelp, you go to biz.yelp.com, biz.yelp.com, and you go to claim your profile. But every one is a little bit different. So if anybody on this webinar has any questions about a particular platform or how they go about claiming that, they need to do it. But basically what you're doing is you're claiming it as the owner so that you can control it. So you can change the address, the telephone number, the hours of operation, add photos, and then you're also verifying and validating that yes, you are in business, and it does help you rank higher within these platforms.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I think that has clarified. Which I have one for you, Chris, as well. So we obviously understand that hearing losses affect a particular segment of the population, and those tend to be the elderly individuals or the older folks for you guys. Which platforms are the over, let's say, 70 years old are favoring in order to actually search for practices, figure out what the best hearing aids are, and so on and so forth? What are the ones that they're using the most? I mean, these are 70-year-olds, and there's no disrespect to the elderly population. I have a lot of clients who are extremely active online, but what's the general feel out there? Where do they go?
I mean, they're going. This is part of the challenge in digital, is that they're going to a lot of different places. They're obviously going to the search engines, so Google, Yahoo, Bing. They're going to the search engines quite a bit, and you know, we see it as we look through data for Hearing Tracker, or as I look through data for some of these local sites, and they're searching for a lot of different terms. You know, a lot of people might think, okay, I'm in a particular city, and people might be searching for hearing aids in my city, and that's right. But they're also searching for, you know, particular hearing aids, rechargeable hearing aids in your city, you know, or invisible hearing aids, or a particular model, you know, the Phonak VR rechargeable. So they might be, you know, typing in all these different queries, and so a lot of it is in Google and the search engines. A lot of people are going to, though, these review sites. So Yelp, Trustpilot. They might also go to YouTube,
Okay.
and even Facebook. And Facebook is really interesting because there are a lot of older folks who are incredibly active on Facebook.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I think it's almost like they're trying to establish a connection with members of the family, the younger
Yes.
generations, and so on. So it's a good way of them feeling that they're participating on the online platform, and the younger kids and the grandchildren encourage them to join and put things in there so they can communicate that way. I totally agree. Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
That's absolutely it. I mean, 15 years ago, a lot of folks who may not have gone online, so the older generation, got online so they could get email, so they could be emailed pictures of the grandkids, updates about family, this sort of thing. Well, people have essentially, they've started to abandon email as a way of personal communication because of social media. And so now, if you want to go see pictures of the grandkids or keep up with a vacation, you better be on Facebook or some other social platform, Facebook or Instagram, because otherwise you're going to miss out, because the family, by and large, will not email you the pictures. So you're absolutely spot on about that.
Cheers. Abram, can I pick your brain for a second? Hearing tracker, right? So I gather some of the actual folks listening to the webinar want to know what are the probably dying to know what are the main 3 top questions that consumers will be asking on hearingtracker.com.
What are the main questions that they're asking?
So let's say top 3. Let's rate them. What's the one that you're getting inundated about? And I'm obviously looking for generics as opposed to the very specific, not so much the that these particular manufacturer works better than that manufacturer, but I don't know, over the behind the ear hearing aids or receiver in the canal is better than in the ear one. So something along those lines. I don't know.
It's funny because we have that ask section of our website. Okay. So I could actually probably pull up the traffic to that area and find out, which pages are getting the most hits and tell you the answer. So maybe while you move on to a second question for Chris, I can come back to you with an answer. I was going to suggest this too, as it relates to the last question. Whatever area you're in, it's hard for us to comment on like what are going to be the most important places for you to have a positive presence online. It's probably easier for you to find out that information because you're in that area. So like if you pull open your web browser, and this is a trick that people like Chris and I know, and you open open a browser that you've never used before, that you're not logged into Google or anything like that. Or if you're tech savvy, open Chrome and then open an incognito tab. And then type things like local audiologist or whatever it is that you think that consumers might be typing in, hearing aids in whatever your suburb of, London or whatever area, little town that you're in, type those questions in and see what the top 10 results are. And, hey, there's a great starting place. Can you, try to make yourself available on those websites? Obviously, we're coming from a place where, we mostly know what websites work here in the U.S. and where people should be, looking to have a representation. But it is harder for, I think, Chris and I to say what would be the most important. Like I just Googled, an audiologist in London, and I came up with a website, doctify.co.uk, which I've never heard of. I don't know how important it is, but it looks like there's not that many people who have a photo on there even, or any reviews. So there's an example where there's a big opportunity to be on page 1 for that search term, and no one's using it. So that's just, that kind of would be my approach. I'd sort of put myself in the shoes of the consumer, and I'd say, okay, I'm looking for an audiologist or whatever. What do I see, and how do I get there?
Good advice.
Great advice.
So Chris, have you got another question for Chris while I look up some information?
I got a few. I mean, I'm looking over here. There's not many more coming, but I've written down quite a few. Chris, I agree with the fact that testimonials are like storytelling, and I really like them. However, and I really am playing devil advocate here. How does the general public perceive these testimonials when they're reading them on the owner of the practice website, and they're probably thinking, right, and especially since you said, oh, I don't put a full name, I just put, Mark or John or whatever it is, and I put an amazing online testimonial because the not so good one, you're not going to place it on your own website. So what's the perception of the general public about testimonials in your own webpage, unless they come from a famous individual that you go, wow, this Joe Block went to that clinic, amazing. How's that perceived? Some people think, well, you just put that there yourself.
Yeah, great question. I think there's a hierarchy. There's definitely some discounting, right? I mean, how could you not discount a testimonial on a website, knowing that, obviously, look, they could have these 3 testimonials, and they could have 100 complaints, but they put these 3 testimonials up. But it's still powerful. It still psychologically plays a role in people's purchase decisions. I will say there's a hierarchy, though. So a static testimonial on your website is at the bottom. It's still, trust me, by saying at the bottom, I'm not saying it's not valuable. It's valuable. A dynamic widget, like the one with Review Revo, where or other review builders, that has the stars and gives the perception like it's pulling the reviews from somewhere else, is the next step up. And then the step up beyond that are the third-party reviews, because the assumption is that, look, I can't go on to my Yelp profile and leave a bunch of fake reviews because Yelp has its own algorithm, or they wouldn't be okay with that. So I think the static testimonials, the one you just put on, they help. They're good. You should do it, but they're probably the bottom of that chain. Next up is a widget-based, where it's showing stars. It looks like it's pulling in from somewhere else, and that sort of thing. And then the next best are these third parties, and that's why it's so important, because they transfer the most trust over to the prospective consumer.
Right, interesting. I like that hierarchy as well. Okay, great. It's interesting. I find it quite interesting what you mentioned about asking clients, patients to actually leave a review, and then companies offering a particular gift or whatever in exchange for a positive review. Now, I also say the fact that you put on one of your slides a practice that actually almost allows anybody to leave a review, whether it's positive or negative. It's just open, and it shows them how to go about doing so. It's for example, I don't know, cherry picking would probably be the best terminology. Who to ask to leave an online review allowed in the States? I mean, I'm really sure about the legalities in this country either, but and do you have to open the doors for everybody to be able to leave your review, whether it's a positive or a negative, or can you just cherry pick? Who do you ask, hey, do you mind leaving us a review? Obviously without offering anything in exchange.
Yeah, great question. So in terms of the cherry picking comment, you are allowed to do that in the States, and the great thing about our software is our software can be set to either do it or not do it, right? So we can say, look, we're going to sort of drive everybody who rates us 7, if on a 1 to 10 scale, 7 or higher, kind of point them in the direction. The other people, we're going to say, gee, we're really sorry. We'll get a manager to reach out to you, something like that. So we can do that, and there aren't any legalities here in the States that would prevent us from doing that, and I'm not aware of any internationally either. But that being said, I have practices that just want everybody to go leave a review. So we basically turn that filter, if you will, or that cherry picking mechanism off. Yeah. Because again, most of the reviews are going to be positive.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll get a negative one every now and then, but just the fact that you're asking people, you know, sort of makes them happier about their experience with you and makes them a lot less likely to go slam you. A lot of people who go to Yelp or Yell or Facebook and leave a negative review, we have to remember this. Put yourself in their shoes. If you've left a negative review on a business, why did you do it? Most of the time it's because you felt like you were not listened to, that nobody cared about your situation or they didn't ask. So just by being a business owner and asking them, hey, did we do an okay job? You're going to stop somebody from leaving a review. A percentage of those people who would like to leave a negative review, you're going to stop in their tracks right there. Because now they feel like, okay, I have an outlet, I have a voice, they care, and that's a lot of the reason why we leave negative reviews.
So what you're saying really, and I'd like to pick on that, is that how do you respond to a negative review can actually generate some other positive reviews because of the way you've actually answered to a negative.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
People may like the fact that you actually took on that negative review and that you actually took on board what the person was actually saying, and that you perhaps offered some sort of outcome or resolution of some description in order to actually make it a not so negative an experience, and that or the people reading that negative review, because bear in mind, and I mean I see these all the time. You know, let's say you had 100 reviews and then you happen to have 5 negative reviews. If the 95 reviews tend to be 4 or 5, you read the top, you know, the most recent, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 at most, and then you're going to instantly going to look for those 5 negatives, because it's just curiosity, you know, even though the percentages are so small, like 5%, I mean, those are the ones that people tend to read the most.
Yeah.
Don't you agree? I mean, you skim through the actual positives quickly, and then you go, right, I can see there's a lot of positives here. What are the negatives? What are the bits that, you know, people are saying are not so good about this so-called very good company?
Yeah, and as long as the overall score is high enough, you know, people will, look, we all know that there are difficult people out there, right? We have friends or family members who we probably wouldn't want as customers because we just know how they interact with businesses in general or other people. And so when they see a 4.5 score, a 4 score, and then they scroll down and they see this 1, a lot of people will say, 1, look, now this is believable, this 4-star rating, which is good, and 2, they can't please everybody. There's just no way. So, yeah, and that's what I do. I look for an overall score. I don't even think I read the reviews anymore. Like if I go to Yelp and there's a restaurant around me and 300 people or more have reviewed it, and it's 4.5 stars, I just am under the assumption that it's a pretty good place.
Pretty good.
So.
Yeah.
Great. How you getting on, Abram? Did you manage to pull those
I found some information for you guys. So the number one question that people land on is, I have had ringing in my right ear for about 2 weeks. My ear feels plugged up with partial hearing and no pain. What should I do?
Wow, okay, that's a complex one. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously people arrive to that question probably with a number of different queries from Google, but obviously that's a common one for some reason. And then are there any differences between the normal phonak hearing aids and the phonak hearing aids sold at Costco? And what is the difference between an audiologist and a hearing instrument specialist? Which company makes the best rechargeable hearing aids? Why does my hearing aid keep beeping? Yeah, and then I also did a different kind of a test, and I went into my my search analytics, and I just filtered queries that included a question mark. So these are actual questions that people typed into Google. What brand of hearing aid is best? Which brand of hearing aid batteries last the longest? How long do hearing aid batteries last? What is the best hearing aid? So on and so forth. So, yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, it's amazing the fact that you guys got access to all of that. That's complete data mining,
Yeah.
which is amazing. So you're clearly doing a good job. That's great. And I suppose once you actually get to know these sort of things, is how do you then translate that into a viable sort of overall proposition? So your overall online presence is touching all the various kind of demographics, if you like. So, I mean, we talked about Facebook, Yelp, Google, Hearing Tracker, and so on. What other social media channels, and this is for both of you, would you recommend practices to actually actively engage and be involved with? And I'm talking about the Twitters and the Instagram's come about in there. I mean, is there a space for audiological practices to actually work around these platforms, or would you say, no, just stick to the main 3 or 4?
I don't think you mentioned YouTube, and that's one Chris mentioned
No,
earlier.
I have not.
Yeah.
But it was mentioned as well. I agree.
Yeah, that's a really good one because, people, when they type searches in, and this is something Chris actually taught me, is, when you type a search into Google, oftentimes a relevant video will pop up on your search results.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're, a local provider talking about something relevant, like, say, answering those questions that I just read out to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a gold mine. Like, if you're a local practice and you are willing to jump on to your webcam and answer some common questions that hearing aid users have, you will see a lot of new patients from doing that. Wouldn't you agree, Chris? That there's almost nobody doing that, and it's a relatively easy thing to do if you're comfortable at all in front of the camera.
The thing that's interesting is people ask me all the time, like, what sort of content should I create, or, what information should I put on my website or be going after? And I always say, sometimes we try to make it a little bit more difficult than it is. Think about the questions people ask you in the office. Those are the same questions in the clinic. Those are the same questions they're typing into Google. So, just maybe it's an exercise of writing down all the questions you get for a month, and starting to think about how you can do that. But yeah, as far as platforms are concerned, I think Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are all important for various reasons. Facebook probably being the most important, although a lot of people don't understand some of the recent changes that have happened in Facebook, like the biggest one in that organic reach has been essentially killed by Facebook. Used to be if you had 1,000 likes, you posted something, 600 or 700 people would see it in their news feed. That's not the case anymore. If you have 1,000 likes, you post something, you're lucky to get 7 people to see it anymore without boosting it. So it's sort of a pay-to-play system, but it's an effective pay-to-play system. So I think it's the most important, even though it's most misunderstood. So for me, it's YouTube, Twitter, Twitter for some of the SEO, and YouTube. And then some second-level ones are potentially Pinterest and Instagram. Those are both visual, applications, and usually the most common application for businesses using those platforms today are ones that have some more exciting visuals than I think you would think the hearing aid industry has. Although I have had clients that have used those. So for example, Instagramming some cool new ear molds or some invisible hearing aids or the fits of some of their hearing aids, particularly the more discreet versions. So they've had some success using that.
Great, that's great information. And based on that, if we were to segment the general population, out of the ones that you've just mentioned, how would we classify, for example, which one the group of, let's say, people aged between the 16 to 30 years of age would favor versus the 31s to the 60, and then the 61s and onwards?
Yeah.
Are you able to then classify, right, these kind of young adults and the younger population will favor these and these and rank them this way, and then you can go on to the next generations and so on, or is that a difficult thing to do?
So I think what your question is basically like between the different platforms, they have different demographics, right? So, and yeah, we see that. So, you know, if you want to go to your youngest crowd, like preteen and teens, you're looking at apps like, you know, Musical.ly and Snapchat. You know, you get a little bit older, you're talking about Instagram and Facebook. Facebook spans probably the largest demographic of all of them, like has the largest penetration in a lot of different demographics. Snapchat has an amazing penetration from, you know, 15 to 25, but it sort of peters out after that. And, you know, Twitter has a decent following, but it's really sort of a young adult kind of thing right now. So 25 to 55, I would say, 25 to 45. And then Facebook and YouTube, I think, just span all the generations, at least today. But, you know, all that's changing. You know, it changes fast. In 5 years, it could be different. I hear Facebook's not cool anymore with the 15-year-olds. So it'll be interesting to see in 10 years what happens.
What's going to happen? Absolutely. Well, great. Well, thank you very much for joining the webinar today. I certainly have very much enjoyed speaking with you and listening to what you have to say, and I'm pretty sure all the BSHAA attendees have thought exactly the same thing. And we wish you all the best in hearing Tracker and everything else that you guys are involved in. And I'm sure our paths will meet again at some point in the future. So all the very best. Enjoy the rest of the day in the US. Take care.
Thank you, Raul.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.